Gosh, it's just a joy to come back home to Iowa. I tell you, every time I get to come back here, it's just a real pleasure. You know, I might have been educated at Purdue University in Indiana to be a veterinarian, but I learned how to be a veterinarian in DeWitt, Iowa, under the guidance of Dr. Bill Spear. And so my wife actually came with me this trip. Usually she doesn't. You know, I'll tell her, I say, hey, I got a talk that I'm giving in North Platte, Nebraska in February. Would you like to go? Yeah, she says, I think my schedule's pretty tight. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. But when I said I was coming to Des Moines and I was going to pop up to Ames and see my partner and his wife, she said, you know, can I go with you? So we're going to go up and see Bill and Norma this afternoon. So great to see some of my clients back. Jerome Birkin sitting right here in front. One of my excellent clients that I had in practice, Dave Lubin, back there, worked with him for a long time. I walked in and saw Dave Petty right off the bat, and I remember meeting him at some Iowa Cattlemen's meetings and hearing him talk about his herd. Got to meet the Rao family last night that won the Environmental Stewardship Award. And I mean, how many of you saw that video of their place? Isn't that gorgeous? I mean, how'd you feel when you saw that and thought, you know, that's my profession? It's just wonderful. So thank you very, very much for asking me to come back here. You know, one of the other things I wanted to say, and thanks to Zoetis for sponsoring this. They do a wonderful job with Cattlemen's College, and so I really appreciate that. But how many of you, and I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to ask you to talk to me. My students, it takes a couple lectures for them to get used to me because they're used to the sage on the stage, to pontificating, and I'm just not that much, you know, into that. There's still seats down front, so you can come. There's definitely here. So if you got a question, you know, shout it out. I'll try to remember to repeat it because it's on recording, and then we'll have a nice little discussion. But I want to know how many of you have been to other state cattlemen's events besides Iowa in your career. Raise your hands high. So the minority. So those of you that have only been to the Iowa Cattlemen's Association convention, you don't have a clue what you've got here. This is awesome. When I stood there last night at the banquet and the auction and everything, I just shook my head because it's been 17 years since I've lived in Iowa. And what you have here is special. And I just want to make you know that it's special. Not every state does this. If I was back in Indiana, we would not have this kind of crowd. We would not have had the kind of speakers that you have. So whoever's in charge here, you know, thank them. And I hate to give Phil Reamson much, you know, credit. I mean, you know, he was just a wet behind the ears vet student. When I first met him, I used to go out to Iowa State and lecture, and he comes up to me and is asking me all these questions and stuff, and I thought, this dude's going to be all right. And so when I left practice, I actually recruited him, and I said, Phil, how would you like to come to DeWitt and work? And he says, I didn't know you had an opening. I said, I'm leaving. And he said, what? And I said, yeah, I'm going to Purdue. So he came and took over for me. So just a fabulous career. So I did want to make sure in my resume that I put that I was the official pie judge of Iowa, of RAGBRAI, because back when I was in practice in Iowa, I'd go and talk in a meeting, and I really wanted to be known as this really good vet, you know, this beef veterinarian that was on the cutting edge doing great things, and the speaker would give all these nice accolades about me and what a great vet I was and stuff, and he goes, but you probably know him best as Dr. Pie of RAGBRAI. And then that was it. That's all I heard about. So here's a picture of me with Chuck Offenberger and John Karras. I said, when I met John, I says, I don't know that I've ever been this close to a liberal before. But, you know, he was an interesting fellow. But yeah, that was a good time in my life, too. And, you know, just pure luck. But it was a great move because I would have clients that would say to me, they'd say, hey, I see you're the pie judge. My wife makes a heck of a strawberry rhubarb pie. And I'd go, only one way to find out. Next day, I'd have a pie in my office. So, yeah, it was a stroke of brilliance on my part. So, one of the things I want to make sure I impress upon you is that health matters for the feedlot calves. And so this was a study that was done at the tri-state or the tri-county steer feed out futurity down in southwest Iowa, and they looked at calves that were non-treated. And I hope you can see these slides. That's probably going to be a little small in the back, but the non-treated calves had a return of $52 per head. As soon as you treated that calf once, that calf lost 15, 16. And when you treated that calf 3 times, 137.30. Okay, so I had more updated ones, and I'll try to remember the exact numbers, but this is from quite a few years ago. In 2004, they looked at these cattle, and if a calf was treated one time in the feedlot, it was somewhere around $80 difference as far as profitability of that calf. And if the calf was treated twice, it was like $120. With prices inflated 2014, it was over $100 less income if that calf was treated one time for bovine respiratory disease, and it was somewhere around $250 if that calf was treated twice for bovine respiratory disease. So health is so important to the bottom line in the feedlot. And I see too many places that start with a high-risk calf, and the veterinarian's term of high risk means unweaned, unvaccinated. He may have testicles still, he may have horns, and all those things are a risk factor that an animal getting sick in the feedlot. Because I as a veterinarian, I'd much rather go to Jerome's farm and help him, sit down with him and spend an hour, and him pay me for an hour of time on a processing protocol and how to keep those calves healthy than me going out there for hours at a time treating sick cattle. I actually had one feedlot client that would always buy really low-end calves, and we were out there every day for months on end treating calves, and I told him, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to come. I'm not going to come. You're going to buy better calves next year because I'm making more money on these cattle than you are. And I want your sons to join this operation because they're not going to if Dad loses money every year. So the guy called that he always bought his calves from. He says, oh, got a sale coming up. These are the calves. These are just the kind of calves you want to buy. They're pretty light. None of them had any shots. You know, they're going to be cheap. And the farmer said to the guy, he says, my vet won't let me buy those calves anymore. He says, what do you mean he won't let you buy him? He says, he said he's not coming. So we typed up a sheet and said, here's what you're going to do. And so he read it to the guy, and he goes, ooh, those are going to be the expensive calves. He says, well, you know, my health cost is too much. So sure enough, the next year he bought a bunch of Charolais Angus cross calves. I don't remember where they came out of, Nebraska, South Dakota, somewhere. And I think he bought about 400 head of calves, and he treated one. So he's pretty excited. He's like, you're right. You can do better. So the health doesn't start the day you get the feedlot calf or the day you wean your calf. The health starts the day that calf's conceived. I was talking to Dr. Bierman earlier about fetal programming and what kind of research Iowa State's doing on this. To me, this is the most exciting thing in research in cattle, in any livestock right now. What's happening? I see some heads nodding too, so good. I got some people on my team. You know, what's happening to that calf early? Because when I look, is this okay nutrition here? These heifers on the left? Is that all right? That's December. That's in Indiana. I go to some states and I have to explain what that white stuff is. I don't have to explain it here. So I came in 83, the first winter. If you all remember winter of 83, I drove by the time and temperature sign on December 24th going to treat a feedlot calf with polio, and the sign said -20. And that was actual temperature. Wind chill was 40 below zero. My medicine froze from the time I got from the truck to the calf. So I know you guys know what winter's all about. You know, I laugh when people in Indiana get worried about the cold. Indiana has this suggestion that's called winter. It ain't real. So, does this look all right? Green grass in December. Cows in good body condition score? That's excellent nutrition. How about the cornstalk bale that is piled underneath the row of trees that's been sitting there rotting for a couple years? That's nutritional fraud, my friends. That is not going to do it. And, you know, that's the thing. I was talking to Dr. Bierman earlier, too, and I said we kidded us pre-vet kids that were in animal science. We had this one professor that, according to him, everything had to do with nutrition. Every, disease and had the foundation in nutrition. And we made fun of him. We said, oh, that's not. And the more I'm a vet, the more I'm like, yeah, he's absolutely right. It's so important to have adequate nutrition in the cattle. So fetal programming, developmental programming, epigenetics. Did you have even another term, Dr. Bierman, that I hadn't heard? Fetal imprinting. So we need to figure out what we're going to call it, so we don't have 4 different names for the same thing. So we'll figure all that out. But this is in its infancy. We're just starting to look at this. But the bottom line is we can't cheat the cow. We can't short her at any time. If you hear Mark Hilton talk about getting cattle out on corn stalks right away after the calves wean, that's still adequate nutrition for those cows. At no time in my career have I ever said to somebody, hey, let's see if we can cheapen the ration up so much that it might affect the production of that cow. I've never said that. But does this look like a good time of the year to calve over here on the left? Here's a herd that I visited up in the northeast United States. You know, they were just about done calving when that picture was taken. How's that look? If you're a baby calf, you want to be born there, raise your hand. How about the next picture over? You like that one? You know, we fight nature and wonder then why we have problems. When we lived in Iowa, we went and bought a calendar every year at the 5 and 10 store, whatever you call it, you know. And you know what? The first day of spring in Iowa is exactly the same as in Indiana. It's March 21st. I had clients that calved in February, and they said they were spring calving. Nope, that's winter. Winter. Is that calf excited about coming out of 101.5 degree temperature into 12 below with snow? Is he excited about that? What's the chances that calf's going to get enough colostrum? You know, I don't understand fighting nature. It just makes no sense. You know, we all know that we've read it 100 times. 75% of that growth happens in the last 2 months of the calf's life. But does that mean the first few months aren't important? This fetal programming, developmental programming. Give me the other term again. I'll try to remember it. Fetal imprinting is from right off the get-go. The placenta develops very early, right? It's got to. Some research says that there's a potential that if we short that cow on nutrition very early in gestation, that calf's lungs may not develop correctly and may predispose that calf to getting bovine respiratory disease 18 months later. Okay? Because he's got a 9-month gestation when he's about 7, 8, and 9 months of age in the feedlot. So when you're buying feeder cattle, wouldn't it be nice to know what the nutrition program of the dam was? We'll at some time have research to prove what we can do and what those calves are going to do different. So I'm tickled that Iowa State's doing research there. Purdue's also doing it. I was down in Texas and I spoke, and Texas A&M's also. This is a very hot topic right now, and it's going to really translate right to the farm. When they took cows in Nebraska that were grazing native range, the grass was in the 3 to 4% protein range, and they added protein to those cows to get them up where they needed to be. The subsequent calves that they were carrying had heavier carcasses, more intramuscular fat, and more overall body fat. Those cattle graded higher and were heavier carcasses. So that imprinting of that calf, you know, is just really important. We've known for a long time that cholesterol quality is huge as far as the health of the calf, but most of us think about it as neonatal disease. You know, the first few weeks of life. Oh, the calf got scours, he probably didn't get enough colostrum. But Meat Animal Research Center did some studies, and they showed calves with high total protein, which meant they got a lot of colostrum absorption. The highest level calves were 3 times less likely to get bovine respiratory disease in the feedlot. 3 times less likely. Again, months and months later on that calf. Calf vigor. A calf born in a cold environment does not get up and ingest the amount of colostrum that a calf that's born into a decent environment. We want those calves to jump up quickly and start nursing. Right? Calf should be born, 20 minutes later it should be standing, 20 minutes later it should be nursing. And that's hugely important for our calves. We know that somewhere around 20 or 30% of beef calves do not get enough colostrum. That's a pretty big number. If you go to a dairy where they're tube feeding all the calves as soon as they're born, because they don't let, I don't know if you know, but they don't let dairy calves nurse the mom anymore. Disease transmission, calf's not going to nurse enough, so they just tube them. And we have a really, really large dairy north of Purdue. They have 34,000 cows, and so it's the largest dairy east of the Mississippi. They actually have 10 replicates of 3,400 cow herds, but we went up there one day and did some blood draws on calves to see how their colostrum intake was. We blood tested 25 calves. Guess how many of the 25 were inadequate in amount of colostrum that they got? Because the workers are supposed to give them 4 quarts when they're born and 2 quarts 12 hours later. They put a stripe on the calf's head every time it gets colostrum. How many failures did we have out of 25? 0. Isn't that awesome? So the management is fabulous, but we're not going to do that, and I'm not going to ask you to do that. Beef are supposed to be low maintenance, right? Cattle that take care of themselves. You have 2 boys, and when they started dating, I says, boys, you want low maintenance females, all right? This high maintenance thing, make them, like a good beef cow, kind of, take care of themselves and not high maintenance. And we did pretty good, so did well. So low maintenance. Lael, how old were you in that picture right there? You about 10? So I got a tip for you. If you go on a farm call and a 10-year-old girl has a brand new 4-wheeler and she says, hey, would you like me to take you on a ride? The correct answer is no. My hair was brown when I started on that ride. She's in the crowd, right? Lael's a junior, right, at Iowa State. So I thought I'd throw that. That's an old slide, isn't it, So don't, if a 10-year-old says, do you want me to take you on a ride? Don't, just say no, just say no. So proper vaccination of the dam. You need to build a relationship with your veterinarian and find out what vaccines you need and when to give them. And I am not saying that to get in your pocket. What percentage of your total cost of taking care of that beef cow for a full year, what percentage is medicine and veterinary expenses? Shout out percentage, I want to hear. I heard 2, 5, 1. Yeah, you're exact. 2 to 5% is exactly where it is. Hello, 2 to 5%. We're insignificant when it comes to dollars. All right. Most herd owners I sit down with, their vet bill is smaller after I sit down with them because they're using vaccines they don't need to. They're giving things at times they don't need to. They're doubling up on stuff because they don't understand the names. Here's how much I know about corn farming, okay? You call the corn guy, seed corn salesman, that's what you call him, yeah, and you say, I need some corn. And he says, okay, and he brings it to you in these bags. You put the bags in your planter and you go out when everybody else is. You wait till you see a couple neighbors, going out, because you don't want to be the first one out, right? Some people do. You go out and you put it in the ground, and then in the fall you harvest it and you get 200 bushels the acre. Okay? Is there more to it than that? There is, but that's all I know. So us vets know a whole bunch about very little, right? The definition of a specialist is somebody that knows more and more about less and less every day. I used to be a good pig vet. I don't have a clue now on pigs. I never see them. I see cattle, that's it. Once in a while I see sheep and goats. But sit down with your veterinarian and find out what you need to be vaccinating for. They'll guide you the right direction. There's no one-size-fits-all vaccination program. If you go online and say, what's the ideal vaccination program for a beef cow calf herd, I hope you find nothing. Because you should. Different places have different diseases. I saw 2 cases of blackleg in 15 years in DeWitt, Iowa. 2 in cattle. I went and rode with a vet in southern Indiana when I first got to Purdue. We saw 2 cases in the morning. I said, I haven't seen this many in 15 years. He goes, oh, I see it every day. So you got to know what you've got. There's no reason to vaccinate for stuff you don't have. So a lot of our herds didn't vaccinate for blackleg. We just didn't see the disease. Old vet told me one time, he said, young doc, if you remember one thing, he said, remember this. Never put a hole in an animal unless it's absolutely necessary. I've never forgotten that. You'll never hear me say, oh, let's do it just because, or in case it works. No, I'm German. You got to prove to me that it's the right thing to do. 99% of herds are open. Who in here doesn't ever buy a bull, a female, or a feedlot calf? Who doesn't ever buy any of those? Yep, 0 hands. So there's no such thing as closed beef herds. You're bringing in animals. And most of the times when you get disease, you paid good money for it. You didn't mean to. Disease doesn't sneak in the back gate at night. It doesn't fly in on a bird most likely. It can. We had a salmonella outbreak that some geese we were pretty sure brought it in. But most times it's that you buy an animal and you don't quarantine it. 30-day quarantine is absolutely necessary. Deworm the animal when it comes in, no matter what the owner said about what they did. Find out what the vaccination protocol is. In fact, I tell my clients, I said, before you buy an animal, ask the seller, can my vet call your vet and ask about your health of your herd? When I was in practice, I had one of my dairy clients buy a cow from another dairy client that had Johne's disease. That's a devastating disease. I about fell over when I found out he bought a cow from this guy. But I can't tell him that the other client has Johne's disease because that's client confidentiality. So before you buy something, have your vet call the vet. If the guy that's selling you that animal that you want says, I'd rather you not talk to my vet, that tells me plenty right there. So the more you buy, the greater disease risk. You know, if you're buying bred females or open females, and for heaven's sakes, don't ever buy cow-calf pairs during the calving season. And don't ever buy a calf to put on a cow that loses hers. We had a client in practice that went to the sale barn and bought a Holstein calf after the daughter's 4-H heifer had a calf 2 weeks early and was born dead. So they went and got a Holstein calf, and I'm not, you know, it doesn't matter what breed it is, at the sale barn and brought it home, put it on the calf. The next 7 calves he had born died of salmonella. He had a $7,000 loss because of going and buying a calf to stick on a heifer. So don't do things like that. Huge majority of herds should vaccinate for IBR and BVD. Very common diseases, you need to be vaccinating for them. Lepto, Campylobacter, I can't tell you, I don't know. You need to talk to your veterinarian and find out. The best time to give the modified live vaccine to prevent the abortion problems is pre-breeding. I know that there's products that you can use at preg check time, and we do it in some herds that we just can't get those pre-breeding vaccines in, but by far the best time to give that is at pre-breeding on the cows. Every herd should have a parasite control program because I can guarantee you all of your cows have parasites. We have moved away from the pour-ons on the dewormers. And the reason being, it appears from most of the research that the product does not absorb through the skin as much as we thought when it first came out. Most of the ingestion of the cattle is from licking each other. So if I have a gigantic 1,600-pound cow and put the appropriate dose on her, and then I have an 800-pound bred heifer and I put the appropriate dose on her, how am I going to make sure the 800-pound heifer goes and licks 800 pounds worth of product off? So I'm just not as positive. We have moved away from those. Are there places we still use them? Yes, we do. But we have moved more back to the injectable products and the oral products. Timing, talk to your veterinarian. Find out if spring is more cost-effective for you or whether fall is the better time to do it. Lice control, absolutely you need to take care of, and this is the right time of the year. In fact, you're a little bit late. We always told our clients in DeWitt between Halloween and Thanksgiving was the best time to pour the cows for lice because we're going to see breaks, you know, early in February. And how many times do we need to deworm the cows? We have a number of herds that deworm once a year. We have some that deworm twice a year. We sure don't have anybody that does it any more than that. I don't want to build resistance. You know, having a little bit of worms is not a disaster. So optimal calving environment, there's my picture again, and the poor little baby calf born out in the snowstorm. And I'm telling you, when I was a kid, we had things like this happen. You know, we were into selling some 4-H calves, and we calved too early and have to put them in a barn, and then the calves would get sick, and it's a lot nicer when they're born out on grass. Those do a lot better. But outside, I'm really negative on calves born inside of a building. The worst thing you can possibly have is a big building where the cows and the calves have free access to go into that barn. I can just write you out a guarantee, just like a muffler, that you're going to have disease problems because the cows are going to make it a disaster. So I love calves being born outside where life's wonderful. Don't fight nature. Beef cows are supposed to be low maintenance, right? I ask my students this during lecture. I'll say, what's the goal for, how much disease would be acceptable from birth to weaning in a beef herd? Almost never does a student say 0. And I go, why are you saying 5% or 10%? Where'd you get that number? Well, you're going to have some things go wrong. And then we go out on a herd visit, and we'll sit down with the owners at their kitchen table, and the students in charge of health will say, so how was the health of the herd last year? And the owner will go, oh, really good, great, yeah. And the wife will say, oh, I think we had a calf with pink eye. And they say, no, I think that was last year. Yeah, that's right, it was last year. And the student's eyes get real big and goes, so you didn't have a single case of pneumonia or scours or anything last year? And they look at each other and go, no. And we go to another herd visit, and they say the same thing. And the students' heads are so full of diseases because we just pump disease into them. They're like, Hilton, what's going on here? I said, we use great nutrition, great environment, we use a vaccination protocol, and we have healthy animals. The goal is 0 sickness. 0. Right? Do you agree? Who's with me? Yeah. Yeah, not how, I tell the students my very first lecture for the freshmen, I do the intro to the beef industry. And 75% of the students, I ask them, I says, who's never touched a cow before they walked into vet school? 75% of the hands go up. It'd be almost the same at Iowa State, right? A lot of those kids did not come from a farm. And I said, my goal as a food animal veterinarian is to never treat a sick animal, never see a sick animal. Well, the students raise their hand, they go, how do you get paid? And I said, oh, my clients will pay me a lot to keep their herds healthy and productive. So that's where I want to be. Sandhills calving system. Who's heard that term before? Yeah, lots of you. I'd always tell Dave Smith, who is one of the guys that kind of, developed this system. I said, man, I wish I would have thought of this, then I could be famous like you. But the goal is, how many of you had children? How many of you have children? So, okay, good. So let's say that your wife's in labor. It's imminent, man. She's going to have that baby in the next 15 minutes. The nurse comes in and says, I'm so sorry, we do not have time to clean up the bassinet from the last baby that was born, and we're just going to stick your baby in there. Is that okay? And before you answer, she says, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, that baby must have had a little nauseousness or something, because it threw up a couple times, and it had a little bit of diarrhea. But there's not much in there, but just a little. Is it okay if we put your kid in there? Who would say that's okay? You can raise your right hand or your left hand if you agree with me. Yeah, nobody. But that's the way we calve. And we think it's okay. And the Sandhills calving system says, no, we think every calf deserves a chance to be born into a clean environment. So here's how it works. And it's the system, not the sand. Okay? You don't have to have sand. It's the system. So you start with the calving pasture. You can't see that very well, can you? It's not too bad. So all the cows are in here about a week to 10 days before they start to calve. Cows that have calves stay there. The cows yet to calve move. See, that's opposite of what we've done it for years, isn't it? We've had this big calving pasture, and everybody calves in the same place, and then we move pairs out. But that calving pasture becomes so contaminated with bacteria and viruses and cryptoorganisms that those calves are going to get sick. So this allows every calf to be born in a clean area. So we leave the pairs back where they're in the first pasture, and we move the cows that are yet to calve into the next pasture. And we do that for a week. And then we move them to the next pasture, and to the next pasture, and to the next pasture. And we just keep doing it until we're done calving. We had a herd that we went and set up, and he did not have land enough to do 8 paddocks. We were able to get 4. Well, that's a lot better than 1. This boy is, I'm going to say he's 30 years old, and he has taken over the cow-calf operation from his dad. His dad's transitioned more to just crops, and the son really likes cow-calf. He said every year, since he was a senior in high school, every year they have at least 50% of the calves get scours. They always lose a few, and he was sick of it. And I said, oh, we can come out and you won't have any scours next year. And he looked at me and he said, what? And I said, I can't guarantee you 0, but I said, if you do, what we propose, you won't have any. So I took about 8 students out there, and we mapped out the whole thing, and we set it up, 4 paddocks for his system. So I called him about halfway through calving season. I said, how's it going? He goes, we haven't had any calf scours yet. He says, but this is usually when it happens, about when half the calves are born. So I said, call me a couple of weeks, let me know how it's going. He calls 2 weeks later, he goes, we haven't had any calf scours. I see him at Rural King or something, and I knew calving season was over, and I said, Josh, how was the calving season? He goes, I can't believe it. We didn't treat a single calf. I said, yeah, that's awesome, isn't it? That was 3 years ago. Guess how many calves he's treated in 3 years? Just guess. 0. Yeah. We didn't add any vaccine. His nutrition program was great. We changed the environment. That's it. Charged him $150 an hour for 3 hours worth of work. He was so excited, he'd pay that twice now because he doesn't have any calves with scours anymore. So use the system so that babies are born in a clean environment. It's so important for the cow-calf folks. Heifers need to be a little fleshy when they calve. Body condition score 6.5 to 7. A lot of the things you'll read says condition score 6. Our cattle are different than they were 20 years ago when the research was done. In 1992, the average Angus milk EPD was +2. What is it this year? What's the average Angus milk EPD? Come on, Angus guys. 25, 26? Yeah. So our cattle are giving a lot more milk than they did 20 years ago when this research was done. So that nutrition's got to come from somewhere. So I want that heifer. If your neighbor comes by and says, your heifer's a little fleshy there, Dave. I think they're, right before they're ready to calve. Just right. Now, if he says your heifers look a little thin, you're sunk, because they're not going to breed back. Colostrum quality and quantity. So heifers body condition score 6.5 to 7, cows in 5.5 to 6. There's good financial research to show that it's worthwhile to have the cows in this good a shape. As much as I like to save money in the fall on corn stalks, letting those cows graze, I'm going to take care of that girl in the spring because it's an investment now, right? My cow is an investment. One of my clients that I worked for said, if my cows are too thin, if my cows are too fat, I'm wasting my money. If my cows are too thin, I'm wasting my investment. I think that's brilliant, just brilliant. Improve quality and quantity of colostrum when cows are in great shape. They start making colostrum about 6 weeks before calving. So I want that heifer or that cow in the correct body condition score 6 weeks before calving so I don't have to be rushing. I don't want to be trying to make up ground at the last second, okay? I want to have those girls in great shape. Balanced nutrition, more rapid calving. We know that a cow that has proper protein content will calve faster than a cow that has inadequate protein. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and buy some expensive protein block or something. Gluten and distillers are fabulous sources of protein. Some of your hay may be, plenty good enough too. You guys had a great season, right? A growing season. Did you harvest very high quality hay this year? No? What was the problem with the hay? Was it too wet early? And so you harvested hay late. So your first cutting, when would your first cutting hay, when would you like to have that done? In, year after year, here's my date, man, I want to have that first cutting done. May what? 20th of May, okay. And so what was it this year? 4th of July? Yeah, we had a lot of first cutting hay made in 4th of July too. We're the same, Ross. We want to be cutting our first hay about the 20th of May, and we had a lot of hay that got cut for the first time around the 1st of July. We have tested, I don't even know how many samples. I'm going to say 50 hay samples. I think one of those 50 has been adequate for energy for our cows during the winter. If you have not spent $20 testing your hay, and then having your nutritionist or somebody that you trust with nutrition help you to balance your winter ration, you're in for a wreck next spring. You talk about fetal programming gone awry. These cows that are underfed this winter are going to be in sad shape calving. Those calves are going to be weak. We're not going to have colostrum like we should, and rebreed on those cows is going to be poor. So I've had articles all in the Indiana press begging our producers to test hay. We actually tested some hay the other day, and I used the Brand's nutrition program from Iowa State, fabulous nutrition program. And we tested this hay for a guy in southern Indiana, and it was poorer quality than straw. Isn't that amazing? He's going to have to feed, I think, 18 pounds of distillers per day to utilize this stuff. It's just filler. It is just horrible. So if he would feed just hay, he would have a disaster. So please test your hay this year. Calf vigor improved, excellent nutrition on the cow. Again, I want that calf jumping up right after it's born and nursing. And I don't want a calf laying around for hours because the mom wasn't in proper nutrition to have the calf. Genetics, heterosis is 6.1% for calf vigor. That's how important it is to have a crossbred calf. Weaning weight's only 3.9% due to bump due to hybrid vigor. We have gotten way too far in this industry to single breed selection, and we need to get back to getting hybrid vigor back in our herds. When we have one of our herds that's gone too far in whatever breed, I don't care what it is, and we go and buy something that complements that breed, the owner 100% of the time says, Huge improvement. We're letting the packer dictate what we're doing on our cow herd. And when we're making mother cows, we need to have crossbred cows. The research was done in the 30s that proved that crossbreeding was important. If the pig guys are having a meeting right now, do you think they're talking about crossbreeding? What percent of the sows in the United States are crossbred or hybrids? 100%, except for the Herefords and the Berks that somebody's, so the kid can show a Berk or a Hereford at the county fair, right? How about the chickens? The chicken guys talking about crossbreeding? How many of them are hybrids? 100%. What's the biggest research area right now in dairy? What's a big problem in the dairy industry? Genetic diversity is one, yep. Cows don't last very long. 3 lactations, 4 lactations, they're done. Longevity is huge, so not all, large amounts of research are done right now with crossbreeding of dairy cow to get them to live longer. A crossbred beef cow lives 1.2 years longer than a purebred beef cow. How many of you love calving out heifers? That's your favorite thing. Again, right hand or left hand. So purebred cows, got to have a lot more heifers. Or I call anything over 75% of purebred. Essentially it is. Crossbred animals don't have to calve out as many heifers because your cows last longer. We just looked at a guy's herd records and he was complaining about his bulls not lasting long enough. And we have the records from the last 10 years that he's been on our records program, and he probably had 20 bulls on there. 3 of the top 4 bulls as far as number of calves sired in their lifetime were all crossbred bulls. So totally makes sense. Marketing, add and capture value of your calves. For the cow-calf guys, you need to build a resume of your calves. Why should somebody want to pay you extra money for your calves versus commodity calves? You need to tell them why they need to do that, and you build a resume of that. If you go and have brain surgery done, you kind of want to check out and see if this person has a resume, right? You don't want them, kind of going through a mediocre program. Yeah, this is the first one they've ever done. You want to see that. So I want to see the resume on the calves. And I call it Precondition Plus. John Herrick from Iowa State started the preconditioning, talk, back 50 years ago or so. But besides vaccinations and weaning, low-stress cattle handling, the proper genetics on the calf for the feedlot owner. He wants to know, are these calves going to perform? Are they going to grade? I want those cattle to grade choice, Excellent disposition. Tri-state or the Tri-County Futurity has proven that disposition impacts average daily gain and profit in the feedlot. Cattle that are wild don't gain as well. They spend too much time being nervous, not coming up to the feed bunk. We want cattle that are easygoing and calm. Double vaccinated with a modified live bovine respiratory vaccination. Studies have been done. Hey, can we give that first vaccination at 2 months, in June when we're processing those calves and we're putting in fly tags and things like that, and still then give that second dose at weaning? Is that as good as giving the dose 2 to 3 weeks before weaning, or this one says 9 weeks pre-weaning and then weaning? Yeah, it's fine. You can do it both ways and you get the exact same result. I don't want to walk cattle through the chute more than I have to either. I'm not asking my clients to do this many, many times, but if we're processing those calves the 1st of June and we're putting in a fly tag and things like that, in fact, I think the next, no. Oh yeah, this is a fun one. My sister-in-law lives in a hoity-toity area of the eastern shore of Maryland, and we were out there one time visiting, and we went to the farmer's market with her because there was this guy that makes bread there that she really likes. And the very first seller on the left was selling organic dog treats. I looked at the lady and I said, "Don't dogs eat poop and dead animals?" She said, "Those are organic also." You got to be kidding me. It's fine, if you're selling organic, that's cool. Don't tell me that it's better than something else, though, because the research says it's not. But I love this picture. The little kid's really concerned about what mom's buying. So some of the newest research says, and this is not a commercial for Zoetis because they sponsored me. My grandpa always said, he said, if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember who you told. So some of the newest research says the intranasal vaccine, so like Enforce, given in that June timeframe is probably a little more mild on the calf's immune system, doesn't stress them as much as the injectable vaccine. So we're moving our clients away from the injectables and toward the intranasal vaccine for their first vaccination in that June timeframe. We use a lot of fly tags, and there's differences in the brands that make them. And again, talk to your veterinarian. The more expensive ones tend to be the best ones, and we really like some of the fly tags. We put 2 in the cows and 1 in the calves in that June processing time. You know, if the owner missed castrating a few calves, we'll cut those calves at that point. We don't have to worry about flies or anything. I always tell the students, if the calf has 2 back legs, or if it has a tail, we can go ahead and castrate it, you know, in June. Now, if it doesn't have any back legs and it doesn't have a tail, he's got more problems than when to cut him. But you know, get an implant in that calf, and then we'll come back at weaning time. Now we'll use our injectable bovine respiratory disease vaccine. Maybe use a Clostridial vaccine. We may have used it early. We may have used it late. Depends on the herd. And then pour those calves in June also for flies. Some of our herds are deworming the calves in June. Some are not. The research is really questionable right now on that. So again, talk to your veterinarian. So where's the money? If you're going to do all these extra things for your cow-calf client, where are you getting paid? You're the cow-calf guy. You're producing this preconditioned plus calf, this high-level calf with a resume that's good genetics, and you used low-stress cattle handling, and they're good disposition. How are you getting paid for this thing? We did a study in Indiana for 11 years. I had a herd that he collected all his financial data for 11 years to find out what were his expenses and his revenues from preconditioning the calves. And we wrote this little extension paper. There's a lot bigger paper that we wrote up for a research paper. But this is a nice little handout. You can download it. If you put in Google, Purdue preconditioning, that probably is good enough. That'll probably get you to this extension publication, and then you can use this. And you know, every year is different. So you know, I'm the first to say that you know, prices change, right? I mean, 2 years ago the prices, or a year ago the prices were way more than we expected, right? Who's with me? You got more for your calves than you thought you were going to get. How about this year? Other way around, right? So kind of averaged out. Both years were little aberrations. But when we boiled it all down, what was the key to a person making money preconditioning? First of all, build a team. Do I, as his herd health veterinarian, know everything? Usually people answer that a little quicker than that. Do I know everything? No, absolutely not. No, I have to get help. So our most progressive clients don't say, by golly, this is my place, I'm making the calls, blah, 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 blah. That's 60 years old thinking. Today's thinking is, hey, I've got a limited knowledge base. I'm going to use other people that are smart to help me make more money. As a vet, my favorite thing is helping people make more money. I just love having a producer say, hey, doc, saved me $30,000 last year on my feed bill. Man, that makes me feel great. So really good. Weight gain of the calves, genetics of the calves, herd health. Pretty easy, really. Give them the proper vaccinations and feed them correctly, put them in a good environment, and then marketing. So pounds pay. When I see articles that talk about preconditioning calves or backgrounding calves and they're talking about 2 pounds a day, I go, really? This is 2015. We got genetics to gain 3 pounds a day. And we've got tons of data that shows we can get 3 pounds a day in a 45 to 60 day preconditioning period and not make the calves fleshy. If you got genetics that are so poor that they won't do that, then you need to find a seed stock producer that's going to help you up your level. But I don't think that's the case. I rarely went to herds that genetics was a real problem. Efficiency pays. That 500-pound calf you weaned, he'll never be more efficient than 500 pounds. 600 pounds, he's a little less. 7 a little less. 8 a little less. So you might as well get the bang for the buck. We can get awesome feed per gains. 4 pounds of feed for a pound of gain on these calves is not unusual. That'll work. More days equals more profit. Is that calf in a preconditioning program going to gain more weight the first week that he's weaned or the 6th week after he's weaned? Which one's he going to gain more pounds? 6. So let's dilute out that first week. Let's not have it be 25% and only do the 30-day green tag program, the minimum. feed those calves 45 or 60 days. Yep, okay, this year it didn't work out so well, did it? You know, the price kind of went south on us, but nobody predicted that. I talked to folks at CattleFacts. They gave me predicted prices, and this year was not going to be a great year for preconditioning. You were going to make money only because of the health advantage. Last year was crazy. We had one of the herds that we do the finances, $211 net profit he made by backgrounding his calves preconditioning for 50 days. $211. That's insane. This year he probably lost $150. So, you know, every year is not going to be the same. Improve your genetics. You know, again, get crossbreeding in the herd. I'm sure you won't be able to see this super well, but the slide shows these are our data points for every single year, our profit per head, and what the calves gained per head. The very first year he did this, the calves gained 1.4 pounds a day in a 45-day preconditioning period. So I tell my dad that we've got this herd and we're working with him, and I says, yeah, the calves gained 1.45 pounds a day. He says, geez, a good feeder lamb would almost do that. You know, you want to tick off a beef guy, just compare him to a sheep guy, you know? That's not good. Look what we were doing at the end, pushing right up around 3 pounds a day. And as we got more gain, we made more money. How much do you get paid for maintenance? I got a calf that weighs 500 a day. Jerome, you got a calf that weighs 500 a day in your feedlot, and tomorrow he weighs 500 pounds. How much money did you make? Did you spend a little money on him? Yeah, because you fed him. So all you want to dilute out in the maintenance, you know, the calories for maintenance. We're supposed to be. All of us are adults. I don't see, we have any children in here that are still growing. So all of us are supposed to be at maintenance weight, right? Tomorrow we want to weigh the same as we did today. But we still have to take in calories to do that. These calves, I want to get paid for pounds that we're gaining, not maintenance. So we need to get these calves gaining more. But you got to have the genetics and the nutrition to do it. So our bottom line in this herd was that his cost to precondition the calves was $174.30, and 79% of that cost was feed cost. That didn't surprise anybody. Our, excuse me, I said that wrong. Our gross revenue, the calf brought $174.30 more than he would have brought if we sold him right at weaning. We spent $93.60 to get that, so that gave us a net profit of $80.70. The last 4 years we were on this project, I had the owner actually write down how many hours he spent every day with the calves, and he was making right at $110 an hour. Who'll work for that? Who'll be okay with 110? Lael, are you okay if when you graduate from Iowa State, they say all we're going to be able to pay you is $110 an hour? Are you going to say, again, probably going to be able to make that work? Yeah. But we're leaving the money on the table if you're selling your calves right off the cow. Most years. We did this for 11 years. How many years do you think he made money by preconditioning out of 11? 11. He made all 11. 1 year it was pretty tight. He only made about $6. But 1 year he was way over 100. But he made money every single year. And the research from CattleFacts and places would show about 9 years out of 10, cow-calf producers are going to make money preconditioning their calves. Wrong way. So where else is the dollar? The health, sales, price advantage. Preconditioned calves should bring more per hundredweight. And in this data set from 2012, this is Superior Livestock, the health price advantage was $12 a hundred, $12.06 per hundred for a preconditioned calf. So that 500-pound calf is going to bring you about $60 more. We found in our data that wasn't nearly as important, the health price advantage wasn't nearly as important as the weight gain. How many of you have control over what your calves are going to bring when you take them to the auction market? Who's taken calves back home because you were disappointed in the price? I did have somebody raise their hand one time at a meeting when I asked that. That'd be embarrassing, wouldn't it? Take them back home and try it again. But we've got control over what the calves gain, and we've got control over genetics, and we've got control over what kind of environment we put them in. I don't worry about the health price advantage. It's nice to have, but in our data, the weight gain was 63% of where his profit came from, with the health price advantage only 37%. So it's nice to have it. So feedlot guys buying preconditioned calves, less antibiotic use, improved beef quality assurance, decreased labor, improved carcass quality. These are all facts that we know from places like Texas Ranch to Rail, Tri-County Beef Futurity, that they've got data on these cattle, that we know that these cattle do a better job. So buying these higher quality calves. This was a big study that was done in Oklahoma. A good friend of mine did the study, and don't read all the stuff. When they looked at, was it more important to, some of the calves they weaned and did not vaccinate. Some of them they weaned and vaccinated. Some of them they just vaccinated and didn't wean. The calves that were weaned and vaccinated and the calves that were just weaned performed the exact same in the feedlot. The calves that were just vaccinated had more sickness. Now the calves that had nothing, no weaning and no vaccination, were by far the sickest of the group. But weaning is the most important part of the preconditioning program. Odd for a vet to say that, huh? I should be up there standing, are you going to need to vaccinate them? Nope. The weaning is the biggest deal. So calves that are unweaned need to be sold at a discount. Any of you have used these before? These little nose flaps on the calves? Anybody? One? Oh yeah, Dave. Okay, yeah. We use them not lots of herds, but a few of our herds, especially if they have poor facilities. If they have fencing that we're worried that the weaned calves are going to get back in with the cows, we'll use these flaps. We put them in on Monday. Walk the calves through the chute, put the flap in, and put the cow and calf back out on pasture. Have any of you seen them or heard of them? Okay, quite a few of you have. And then, so we put them in on Monday, put them back out with the cow, and the calf walks out there and he reaches up to nurse and he's like, I've forgotten how to nurse? I knew how to nurse an hour ago. What happened? And it's really hilarious. A few of them figured out and can flip it up and get the cow nurse. So Monday the flap goes in, go back out with mom. Friday the calves walk back through the chute. We pop the nose flap out. Calves go on one side of a one-strand electric wire. Cows go on the other side of one-strand electric wire, and the calves are weaned. We start them on feed, and off we go. So if I have herds that say, I can't wean because I don't have facilities, yeah, again, my grandpa said can't never did anything. So I don't like the word can't. Can't means you don't understand or you're unwilling. If you don't understand, I want to explain it to you. So we use those in some of our herds, really like them a lot. Here's, again, a study from southwest Iowa, Tri-County. They looked at calves. If the calves were non-weaned coming into their lot, those calves were 3.4 times more likely to get sick. If the calves had killed vaccine instead of modified live, the calves were 2.2 times more likely to get sick, okay? There's places for killed vaccines, not in calves. Modified live is the way to go. And thousands of research calves show that that's the fact. So here's Hilton's proposal on how to totally eliminate the sale of high-risk calves, okay? For the next 30 days, every buyer of feeder cattle agrees not to bid on high-risk calves across the whole United States. Calves come in the ring, and the auctioneer says, they're not weaned, they're not vaccinated, how much you giving me for them, boys? The auctioneer goes down and down in price, and nobody buys them, and he cries out, take them back home, boys, and nobody wants them at any price. That ain't going to happen, is it? I wish it would, because that would change our industry in 30 days. Because I think the word would get around, don't you? I think the word would get around. One of the Beef Magazine articles that I wrote for Vet's Opinion, I looked at some information that I'd read from a researcher, and it showed that the feedlots were overpaying for high-risk calves by about $100 a head and underpaying for healthy calves by about $100 a head. I think they're going to figure that out after a while and stop doing that. Handling, behavior, social aspects impact health. Windbreaks in the winter, you guys taught me a lot out here. You know, I grew up in Indiana. I thought we had winter. We don't. It's a suggestion. It's not real, you know. And the cornstalk bale windbreaks, we just suggested that to one of my Indiana herds the other day, and he thought that was genius. I didn't tell him I learned it from you guys. He just thinks I'm smart. Sunshade, sprinklers in the summertime, because it gets hot here too. I remember our first summer, we had many days over 90. Lots of my clients were telling me, Doc, don't move. It's usually not this bad in the summer, and it's usually not this bad in the winter. I wasn't sure, but it did get better, so that was good. Dust and mud control, fresh water that's easily found. You know, calf doesn't know how to push a ball down to get water right off the bat. Acclimate the calves to the pen, low-stress cattle handling. How many of you have watched videos by Tom Knopfsinger or somebody, the way they acclimate new calves? Just tell me something that you've learned from that. Shout it out. What would they do, and what did you think it did, or if you've done it? And tell them what you did. So these are new calves that you bought? Yep. Yep. So the comment was understanding. Yes. Yes. So understanding the calf's flight zone, getting those calves acclimating, and I'm going to paraphrase, letting that calf know you're his advocate. You're not the enemy, walking out there, have the right people. One of our clients said after they went to a low-stress cattle handling seminar, we had an 8-hour seminar and had an expert come in, Lynn Locatelli, excellent choice. If you want an all-day seminar on low-stress cattle handling, her, Tom Knopfsinger are fabulous. And she said, it's not just low-stress cattle handling, it's low-stress people handling too. She said, we were so much calmer out there working the cattle. She was so proud of herself because she went out and gathered 40 cow-calf pairs. This is a woman with no livestock experience. She's a city girl that the farmer met and married, and she went out and gathered 40 cow-calf pairs and brought them into the corral all by herself before her husband got home from work. So they worked those calves. She emailed me because she was so excited about that. But letting those calves know, walking through them in the pen, figuring out who the leader is. But there's some great videos. All you have to do is punch in acclimation of feeder cattle in Google, and you'll come up with some videos that are just fabulous. Getting those calves up and eating quickly is so important to health. You can't have those calves trying to run around the pen, figuring out where to get out all the time and who's the leader. So really good. Feed in a bunk that's similar to what they've previously consumed. If they've never seen silage before, I think that's a really bad feed to have right off the bat. And in fact, I think corn is probably negative for most brand new calves. We don't start our calves on starch anymore. We start them on gluten, soy hulls, hay, corn stalks, things like that. We make a balanced ration. We don't add corn for the first week or so. This is really interesting. This guy was in France and did some research studies, and he DNA typed because the two main bacteria for causing respiratory disease are Mannheimia hemolytica, Pasteurella multacida. Doesn't matter, the names. 2 bacteria. They're normal inhabitants of the upper airways. They're in there all the time. So he DNA typed them as these calves are coming in. Then when they got sick, they took a swab and went clear down the lungs, typed that out to see if it was different DNA. So did you spread it to me and the other calf, or was it my bacteria, that calf's bacteria himself that was killing him? It's not spread around. The viruses are spread around. The bacteria are not spread around. Mannheimia and Pasteurella, the organisms that kill the calf are their own. So the stress of that calf allows those bacteria to get down into the lung and kills the calf. So if you can reduce stress on that calf, they're not going to get down in their lung. So low-stress cattle handling and things like nutrition are so much more important than vaccinations. Vaccinations are important, but doing the other things right is way more important. Oh, here's this note that I had. So the newer studies show that intranasal is probably better to the subcutaneous or IM vaccinations for those young calves. So in June, again, we're giving the intranasal, maybe giving a 7-way, absolutely giving a fly tag, absolutely pouring those calves for fly control. Anybody that's not castrated gets castrated. Because testicles on bulls, the longer the testicles are attached to the bull, the more the bull gets attached to his testicles. I stole that from Dan Thompson from Kansas State. Dan's dad was John Thompson, is John Thompson, that was the dean of the vet school at Iowa State, so it's not an original, but I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was great. Then at weaning time, we're given a sub-Q BRD vaccine, deworming those calves. There's where if you're going to deworm animals on the farm, that's the first animal to deworm. Just weaned calves. Can guarantee you they're parasitized. They don't have any immunity. They're young. They're not smart grazers. They graze right up next to the fecal pat, and they've got worms. Deworm the calves at weaning time. Who's the next most important animal to deworm on the farm? The herd bull. Bulls are more susceptible to parasites than cows. And they get neglected sometimes, because when you're walking those cows through the chute in the spring, a month before breeding, where's the bull? He's in a different pen. It's kind of a pain in the butt to go get him, isn't it? So you might throw a little pour on him and hope for the best. No, I think you should walk him through the chute when you're done, Semen check him. That'd be a good day to semen check him. Put a couple fly tags in him because the flies love bulls, right? Testosterone and horn flies are best friends. When I was first in practice, I was trying to convince an old farmer to fly tag his animals, and the bull comes through, and he's just covered with flies. And he agreed. He says, oh, let's try it. We'll put the fly tags in. I put the 2 fly tags in. The bull walks out of the chute, and he looks at me. He goes, well, it didn't work worth a darn. I says, well, it's not instantaneous. He thought the flies were all going to fall off of him right then. Expectation. So yeah. Bred heifers, highly parasitized. So those yearling heifers that are out there, they're going to be parasitized also. Your young cows also. 5 to 10-year-old cows, we're not as sure whether to deworm them or not. You know, talk to your veterinarian, see what you think. Revaccination of feedlot cattle on some set schedule. You give them a shot of bovine respiratory disease vaccine when they walk in, and then you routinely give it 3 weeks later. That's a mistake. Look at the cattle. If the cattle are doing great, going up on feed, staying healthy, they don't need another vaccination. If the cattle start getting sick, then yeah, that's the time to do that. But every group's going to be different. You need to figure it out. You know, when I was in practice, that was our routine. We'd vaccinate them, and then 3 weeks later, we'd vaccinate them again. You need to look at those cattle and figure out. And maybe that first vaccination needs to be an intranasal, because we don't know if that calf's ever had anything before, and we know for sure giving an intranasal the first time is easier on those cattle. So I like it. Don't combine antibiotics. Holy criminy, don't they cost enough the way it is? You know, right? Last I checked, they're not giving away Draxxin and Mycotil. So one antibiotic. These companies that are researching these antibiotics, I'm sure those researchers are making $150,000, $200,000 a year. I'm going to believe them, and I'm going to use one product. I always told my clients in practice, if I give the calf more than 3 injections, I really don't know what the heck's going on. I'm hoping something works. I give it one thing, I'm pretty sure it's working. So yeah, here's a starting ration from a friend out in Colorado. 400-pound calves, 52% stalks, 45% wet distillers, and 2% supplement package. No starch. They don't start any of their high-risk calves on corn. Now, if I have some preconditioned calves that have been on 5.5 pounds of cracked corn a day, along with distillers and hay, I'm gonna put those calves on 5.5 pounds of corn day one, because they're used to it. The rumen knows what that is. But if that rumen doesn't know what starch is, wrong thing to feed right off the bat. A nutritionist, a PhD nutritionist, I used to do some herd visits with him, brilliant guy. And gosh, if you don't have a nutritionist on your team, you need that person on your team. But he told me, he said, more feedlot cattle get ruined in the first 2 weeks on feed than any other time in their life. I've never forgotten that. Too much starch, too much silage, too much energy right off the bat. You know, if these calves are coming off grass, they've never had that. So, conclusion, producer of feedlot calves, fetal programming, nutrition of the dam is huge. Calving time and calving environment. Let the little booger have a good start. He deserves a good start. Calving ease on heifers, I didn't talk about that at all, but my heavens, there's a plethora of AI bulls out there that have phenomenal calving ease numbers, that have great growth and great carcass and disposition. I mean, you can just, there's 15 Angus bulls that I could pick for my heifers, and I'd be tickled to death with them. Now on the cow side, let's get some crossbreeding back in there. There's not one breed that's superior for everything. If you're in the seed stock business, I understand that. You gotta, you know, you may be raising purebreds or maybe composites. Colostrum, getting that calf, a lot of vigor when he was born, so he jumps up and nurses. Sandhills calving system is phenomenal. We have never had a herd have a failure with it. We've had to tweak some things. We've had few calves get sick, but we'll make some adjustments and they won't have any problems the next year. Pre-wean, precondition, weaning of those calves, super important. The most stressful day that beef calf has the day it gets weaned. If we're doing a whole bunch of things to that calf, castrating, vaccinating for the first time, it's a disaster. That calf doesn't deserve that. Our calves deserve better than that. Feedlot entry, low stress cattle handling. So if you're buying feedlot calves, find suppliers that do all of the above. In fact, demand it. We have a feedlot client that when I first started working with him, he fed about 50 calves a year, and he's going to feed 4,500 next year. So he's expanded quite a bit. And I was talking to some of the people at the banquet yesterday. He feeds lots and lots of byproduct feeds. Fruit and vegetable waste is the #1 feed in his ration. And he was buying cheap calves at first and having terrible sickness. And his feedlot manager literally called me on the phone one day. The guy's the same age as I am. He was crying. Here's an adult man that's crying He says, I can't even bear going out to look and see what the disaster is this morning. He says, we've been treating so many sick calves, and he says, we're losing calves. I can't keep up. And I said, this is ridiculous. I said, let me talk to the owner, and I said, this is crazy. You've got to buy higher quality calves. You cannot buy calves like this. Oh, I don't know if the guys will do it. He bought calves from 25 guys, no sale barn calves. These were all directly off the farm. None of them were weaned, none of them were vaccinated. His vet sent them a letter, because I wasn't his regular vet. They sent him a letter to all 25 of those herds and said, we will not buy your calves next year unless you do all of these things. Listed everything that had to be done. Guess how many guys called him and said, I'm not doing that? 1. 24 of them said, oh, well, yeah, if you'd have told me that, I would have done all that. So demand it. Demand to get healthy calves. And Butch, I should have mentioned you too. One of my absolute heroes in this state. He and Patsy, absolutely. They were so kind to me when I first came. Butch, the calf has to be born. It's the same answer of how soon can I castrate a calf? We have not figured out how to do it in utero yet. I've always wanted to get a picture as I'm pulling a calf backwards, and it's a bull calf, and I've got the Newberry knife right there, getting him cut. If you give the intranasal, the only reason to give the intranasal at birth is if you have nursing calf bovine respiratory disease. Geez, Brent, you're the guy that sells this product. I mean, that's you. Seriously, you correct me if I say anything that's wrong. So Vic Cortez, the guy is the smartest man I've ever met in my life. I think he's smarter than Dave Lovin, but not much, just a little bit. But immunology is his thing, and I think if you're given these calves the day they're born, that vaccine's going to last somewhere in 7 to 9 weeks. Is that okay? And then what you would do is you're walking those calves through again. So you're putting a tag in its ear, you're squirting this stuff in its nose the day it's born. Then in June, when you walk those calves back through the chute to give them their fly tags and things like that, give them another intranasal vaccine. That'll take them clear to weaning, okay? So that'll cover them the whole time. And we know that there's more bovine respiratory disease in nursing calves than we're aware of. And we actually have a herd right now that he always has some disappointment calves, is what he calls them. Weaning weights are significantly lower than the rest. And one of the things that I said was, let's try a trial, and let's try using, because he's got about 7 little herds, different spots, and they don't commingle. And I said, let's vaccinate half those calves at birth this coming year, and let's see if we see some differences in weaning weights of those calves. Because we know for sure that a lot more calves have respiratory disease before they hit the feedlot than we realized. They've done slaughter checks, and they've got calves like out at the Meat Animal Research Center in Nebraska, where they know everything about that calf from the minute it was conceived. And they had, and I won't get the number right, I'm not a detail person, but approximately 40% of their calves that had never been treated for bovine respiratory disease had lung lesions at slaughter. So those calves had pneumonia at some time. So for sure, if you have nursing calf respiratory disease, I would absolutely use the intranasal vaccine the day they're born. If you think your herd is just super healthy, you've never had that, I would be using it, first part of June. Great question. So you led with colostrum from the dam is the most important, the best source. Correct. No doubt about it. What of the supplements are better? None of the supplements are worth a darn. The replacement products are quite good. And make sure you get the ones with research backing. Again, ask your veterinarian. Don't ever buy, my vet students get to know my grandpa really well too, because I got lots of his quotes. Grandpa said, always and never are 2 words I always remember never to use. Right? Because we're stretching the truth. But here's a never. Never buy the supplement products. And if a product says it's good for cattle, sheep, goats, dogs, and your kid, it's absolutely worthless. So there's good products on the market. There's some that are made out of colostrum, and there's some made out of serum. And both of those products, they have to have at least 100 grams of IgG in them. So if they have less than 100, don't use them. But there's 4 or 5 products on the market that are very, very good. I think 100% of you should have a bag of it on hand before calving season starts. Because what time are you going to call me, your veterinarian, because you got a heifer that decided she hates her calf and you got to tube it and get some colostrum in it? What time and what day of the week? Go ahead, tell me. Sunday at 2 in the morning. That's right, exactly. Yeah, you guys all, we have a client that I go to, and I told him one time when I was out there at 2 in the morning pulling a calf, I said, I just want to make you aware that we're open from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Because I'd never been there during those times. Excellent, excellent question. I get that one all the time, and there's some junk out there. Don't buy the junk. The good stuff's expensive. You know, it's $30 or so for a package, but what's the calf worth the day he's born? If you got $700, $600 to $700 is what you've got in that calf the day he's born. And it's $30. I'm not going to give it to every calf. Again, develop a herd that the calves jump up and nurse. If you're having to tube your calves for when they're born, your environment, your nutrition, or your genetics is screwed up. Low maintenance. So the comment was, University of Illinois has done a lot of research on feeding very high starch rations to calves in a creep feeding ration, and the only reason they're doing that is to try to get lots of calves to grade high choice or prime. So cost effectiveness of that, and if you're feeding your heifers, in addition to your steers that are going to slaughter, a high starch ration, you put fat in the udder, you decrease milk production over that cow's entire lifetime. It works, but to me it's a short-term fix for a long-term problem. If you want to increase marbling in your herd, how do you do it? It's simple. Genetics. If it's not the most, you didn't go to Mosier's talk because you came to mine, but if it's not number one on the most highly heritable trait, it's number 2, marbling. It's so simple to use, really high marbling genetics to produce, if you want feedlot calves to do that. Again, and you said Angus, they're by far the marbling leader. I mean, they have excellent marbling in their herd. And I talked to an Angus breeder, and he said he's at his 3rd generation of using only Angus bulls in the top 1% of the breed for marbling. His reproduction rate is horrible. His cattle look terrible. I mean, I'm like, where's the muscle? You can't single trait select. Why do we do that? Why in the beef industry do we jump on a horse and ride it till it's dead? It's just ridiculous. Calving ease and moderation. If a huge study was done in Montana a number of years ago, and I think they had 4,000 calves in the data set, all out of heifers over a number of years. So they weighed the calves at birth. Lowest quartile, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th quartile. So the heaviest down to the lightest. Which group had the biggest death loss? This shouldn't be a surprise. First calf heifers. Who died the most? Yeah, the heaviest calves. Who was the second group that died the most? The lightest calves. When I have a guy tell me he has a cow that has a 65-pound calf, I either want to know if she had a second one or what the problem is. I want my cows to have a 90-pound calf. Calving ease is great for heifers. There's not an Angus bull in the world, I think, that's a problem to use on cows. And I'll have clients that, they'll shy away from an Angus bull with a +5 birth weight EPD because they're scared to death they're going to be pulling calves all the time. A +5 Angus is the same as about a +2 Gelbvieh. Plenty of +2 Gelbvieh sold, So we get a little crazy on heifers, you bet. I'm a vet. I don't want to go out and pull calves. I want my client call me after the heifers are all done calving and go, Doc, had 17 heifers, calf, had to pull one of them. That's what I want to hear. And he says, I probably didn't have to do that. But sorry, I'm on my soapbox now. I apologize. Good question. So the question was, if I've got a cow, I've got a situation where the calf's not nursing as much as I'd like, I really need to get this cow in and milk her out. So the first thing to do is give her a cc of oxytocin. IM in the neck. Pop her with 1 cc of oxytocin, you'll get a lot more volume of colostrum out of her. If you're worried she's going to kick you, take a lariat and put it around in front of her udder. Cinch it up really tight around her flank, and she's much, much less likely to kick you, okay? So, and I always tell my students, put your backside against the cow. Don't face the cow and milk her. It's easier. It's a lot easier to reach under and do that. But if she kicks, she's going to hit you in the face or knock you down. So I put my hip right against the cow. So if she pushes or does anything, she's going to push me away. But yeah, go ahead and milk her out completely. Get all that colostrum out. Tube the calf. You can give the calf up to 4 quarts. That's going to fill him up pretty good. And it's in the middle of the night. I have no problem with that. You know, most of the bags only hold 2 quarts, and that's your judgment. You need to make the judgment. But that is routine for a brand new Holstein calf, 4 quarts the minute they're born. So give him 2 to 4 quarts, then you can take the rest and yes, put it in the refrigerator and save it until the next day to give it to him. Warm it up on the stove really slowly. Don't put it in the microwave because you get hot spots and it decreases the viability of the immunoglobulins in there. So you want to just warm it up slowly and then get it into him again the next day. Write in your red book, cull cow. Low maintenance. Thank you very much.